Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Cruising your way next, Off 90. Join a diaspora of writers. A private estate that became a nature preserve open to the public. Cobbling isn't just for elves anymore. Plus, a live performance from an unlikely venue. That's the exit up ahead for our next stop, Off 90. Hi, I'm Barbara Keith. A diaspora is a dispersion of native peoples to foreign lands. Several writers from Rochester formed a presentation they called a writing diaspora. The writers were all women of minority descent. They read original works of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. Their work explores immigration, race, culture, identity, gender, and sexuality. We took a seat with the audience during the performance.
I've been a writer, I think, almost as long as I could write. And it's something that I've always loved to do. When I was a kid, I would write a lot of little stories, short stories. I think my dad still has quite a few of them. But I do love fiction. It's sort of my first love, fiction literature. My name is Nicole Fenoya Mahara, and I am a writer here in Rochester. I write a lot of different places. In Rochester, one of my favorite places used to be Cafe Steam, and then my friend built a tiny house. I especially like places that don't have Wi-Fi, because then I don't have internet access, and I can just, I don't get stuck trying to research or, fall into some Google or Facebook or anything else like that, and I'm able to just kind of look at the blank page and write. It's really important to be able to share what you've written, to share life and that practice with other people. And I think it's good for your sanity. And I think it's also good for your work as well. And then it's also great when you have other writers that you admire or whose work has influenced your own, or who you just love to hear from, that are part of that community with you. So I think there's sort of the standard definition that diaspora is a group of people that has been displaced from their homeland. And it's got Greek roots, biblical roots. In this particular context, we're talking about the African diaspora, and that itself has a lot of different meanings for different people. So you'll have sort of the African diaspora as being really characteristic of enslaved Africans who were taken from Africa and brought to the New World, to the Americas. And then there's also the new African diaspora, or Black diaspora, which is Caribbean and African peoples kind of going all over the world and settling all over the world, particularly after colonialism and after those colonial powers sort of left. Today is just about, it's about writers, it's about Black writers in particular, and about showcasing the diversity of the narratives around diaspora, around immigration, that I think sometimes we get that one single story about what that might be like, and here we have 4 different writers and then a moderator who's written a whole short story collection about some of these issues, and to really share that with a community. I think a community that's becoming more diverse, that's becoming more critical of the changes happening around them and changing demographics and population, and I'm hoping that it'll really resonate with people out there and kind of spark more conversations like this, more spaces where writers can talk about why they write, their identities, and how that makes it onto the page. I will always counter the displacement with this idea that displacement is also a really fertile ground for creating new homes and imagining new futures and identities for yourself. And so it doesn't always have to be about alienation or displacement or feeling apart or other, that it's a new thing. That hasn't been there before, and you're just living through it, and that there's going to be growing pains from that, and there's going to be, challenges in navigating that. I like to think that I may not have a specific home, but I have multiple homes, and I'm creating home as I kind of move through the world. I've been really humbled and excited about Minnesota as just a supporter of the literary arts. Again, I'm from New York City, and I moved here just a couple years ago, and the ease with which I've been able to, to receive some of the, not that it was easy, but just that these were available and accessible to someone who hasn't published a book yet. I'm still working on that, but that someone says, either at the state level or at a foundation level, this is important. This is important for us as a state. This is important for us as a community to support these people that are creating work about their own lives, but that speaks to our communities here in Minnesota or elsewhere. And so, yeah, I've been very proud and humbled by that. And I hope that, I hope that I create something that, is worthy of that. I sometimes write first and foremost for the me's out there, that grew up, in a similar way that I did, or had, similar struggles and things like that. But then I also, write for people. And again, that sort of idea that arts and writing is really about that human story, and really building that for people and getting people to engage with that, as opposed to, people don't do that. They don't engage with the news in that way, or some other things, but storytelling and writing, and particularly fiction, I think sometimes really does provide that, and it's really powerful.
The J.C. Hormel Nature Center is a municipal nature preserve in Austin. It comprises more than 500 acres of restored and remnant prairie, hardwood forest, wetlands, and meandering streams. It was named in honor of J. Hormel, the son of Hormel Foods Corporation founder George A. Hormel. His private estate forms the original land of the park.
Maybe get him off of my head?
Yeah.
You don't like it? Oh! Diving board! Yep. High dive! What'd you find? Anything good in there? Let's peek and see. Should we peek through your muck and see what you found? Let's peek and see. I bet there's something living in here. He is very slippery. You are 100% correct there, Dave. You know what, Zeppelin? He's going to jump away if I try and let you. Otherwise, I totally would. Habitat?
I got a little tadpole.
You sure did. This is what happens in between, when he's still a little bit tadpole and a little bit frog. Pretty neat, huh? Yeah.
We use the pond all the time for teaching about, how much life can live in such a small spot. It's actually a man-made pond. You wouldn't know it. The person who's probably more experienced canoeer, so you can talk with your partner, should probably be the one in back. I'm Lou Crease, the director and naturalist at the J.C. Hormel Nature Center.
Let's do this, man. Let's go.
Well, the J.C. Hormel Nature Center is part of the community of Austin. It's a 518-acre nature preserve, and it's also a center for environmental education here in the city of Austin. Jay Hormel, the son of George, the founder of Hormel Foods Corporation, owned this property, and his family lived here, and he liked forests. He was disappointed with the loss of all the forests because of all the agricultural activities. And he planted thousands and thousands of trees, and it was a private arboretum, but he always liked to share it with the people of Austin.
Look at the frog. Look at that! It's a beautiful leopard frog, a great big one. Look at his big long legs. Look at that. What do you notice special about his feet? What happens with his toes? What do you see with his toes? Do your toes have skin in between them?
You take a good scoop out of your net, and you can haul out 50 things in one scoop. And it's just a great chance for kids to learn that there's living stuff surrounding them all the time. And eventually, in 1971, the city of Austin acquired 123 acres of the Hormel property to start the J.C. Hormel Nature Center. And from there, we've expanded to 518 acres. We have 10 miles of trails, and we have this brand new $5.8 million facility.
collecting the sap from our maple trees to make maple syrup. And it's when it comes out of the tree, it's 98% water. So you got to boil off all the water to get down to the sugar to make the syrup.
We try to provide quality habitat, and the wildlife will come. The one challenge we have is with deer. Because of all the fragmentation in the landscape over the last 100 years, we've created a lot of really good habitat for deer. There's more habitat than there really is space for all of the deer. There's not enough food for them, and then they start to do things like eat trees and stuff like that. And that makes it really hard to manage your forest. When a tree falls down, it depends. If it's over a trail, it gets moved to the side. If it falls in the woods and it's not a problem to anything, for the most part, we'll leave it. At some point, we'll have to come along and do some work in the woods, but right now, a big focus of our restoration work is on the prairie. Prairies were once one of the most common ecosystems in all of central North America, and over 99% of them are gone now because of agriculture. So all of these native plants to the prairie are also pretty rare. This is a tall grass prairie, so big bluestem is one of our main grasses. In our species mix, we had over 100 different species of plants. Our new interpretive center is really a jewel. The building itself cost $5.8 million. Of that 5.8, $5 million was contributed by the Hormel Foundation. And it's also an example of a real green building. It's very environmentally friendly. Climate change is a big challenge too. We do a lot of cross-country skiing here in the winter, snow permitting. The last few winters, the snow has not been real cooperative. That may or may not be attributable to climate change, but climate change is a real thing. The consequences of climate change that we're going to have to deal with are increases in temperature, but also increases in extremes. So we could have more frequent extreme rainfall events, more frequent droughts. When the snow comes, it might come more heavily, but it's not going to stick around for as long. Things are going to be different, and it's hard to know for sure how it's going to be, but one of the ways you can make yourself a little more resilient is to try to build up your ecosystems so that they're healthy now, and hopefully they can survive longer, and that's what we're trying to do here.
In the grass? I see a dragonfly. He went over our heads.
It's incredibly unusual for a small town, for a town of our size, to have a facility like this, to have a Fortune 500 company that is able to support us and really ensure the success of this place, to have a community that supports this place.
You can check Frog Island for a frog or two, and you can peek over here and see if you can find any turtles. Oh, our friend Ryan caught something. Let's peek and see what he got in his net.
And to be able to continue to invest in our youth so that they can be better stewards of the earth, it's incredibly unusual, and we're very lucky to have it here in Austin.
Oh, I see a great big fuzzy bumblebee over there. Do you see him on the purple flower?
No.
In the middle?
Oh,
Yeah, there he is.
You might think that being a cobbler is a dying profession, but Hastings Shoes in Austin is still going strong. Its founder was Mark Hastings, who enjoyed working with leather his whole life. Mark opened Hastings Shoe Repair in 1957. Even though Mark has passed on, a piece of his soul remains on Main Street.
Hello, can I help you? But we've never had a day that we don't have work to do, so I guess we're lucky there. There's always something to have, to repair. I'm Jeanne Hastings. I was born and raised in Austin. Started working with my husband back in 1956, and I'm the owner now of Hastings Shoe and Repair Store. We've been in business. My husband's father started in 1909 with a harness shop, making harnesses for the Hormel's meat wagon trucks in town and repairing a lot of harnesses by hand. He never wanted to go into the retail business, but we ended up 50 years ago going into retail also besides repair business. We always sell retail shoes, steel-toed and composite and safety-toe type shoes, and women's shoes. And then in the repair shop, we repair everything from coats. I put zippers in. I sew letters on the kids' jackets, the high school letter jackets, and I repair purses. Basically anything that can be repaired. If it's repairable, we do it, and we do soles and heels. We worked formerly, when I started going with my husband, we were in what was called the Babcock building over where the U.S. Bank drive-up is right now. It was a big 3-story office building. We moved to this building 50 years ago. It was formerly in the 1800s, it was a courthouse. It was the original courthouse before they built the old courthouse across the street on Main Street. And the jail was down in the basement. There were separate rooms where they had a jail for people. We always have a candy dish at our counter for kids adults too. Some of them just come in for the UPS lady grabs her piece of candy every time she leaves. She calls that her lunch. We had a man just recently mailed a shoe up to us from Texas, and he said, I'll be home in about 3 weeks to see my son in the cities, and we had to build it up 5 inches for him, just one shoe. And so then he came in and got it, and we've done that for years. He used to live around the area over west of Albert Lea, and he said from here to Texas, he can't find anybody that can build his shoe up the right way that he needs to have it built up. And the foot doctor in Albert Lea, one of them there now, he sends a lot of customers over, and we do what's called a buttress on a shoe. It's a piece of crepe that goes on the outside of a shoe, but it keeps people from pronating their feet in quite badly. And we do a lot of that prescription work for foot doctors like that. Even that foot doctor in Austin here too sends people down. But every job that comes in is kind of different. You know, I sew a lot of these big pull belts for a guy in Brownsdale that brings in like a toe strap type of thing, and I sew a lot of them for him like that. So every job that comes in is kind of a different type of job to do. We try to carry, as much as we can American-made products, which is getting to be very few and far between anymore too, just about. So we basically stick to work boots. We sell to different, like the meat packing companies, they have to have a certain type of steel toe or composite toed. And McNeelius Company in Dodge Center, they'll send people over to have a certain type of a shoe for their jobs over there. And we sell like a lot of shoes to the guys that do the windmills out on the fields. They have to have a composite toed shoe because it doesn't conduct the lightning. If they're up in a tower, working on a tower and a storm comes up, and if they have a steel toe boot on, that conducts the lightning and they would get electrocuted. And recently we just donated a pair of shoes to the woman that her son had passed away at the football field 2 weeks ago, and she comes in as a good customer. So we donated a new pair of shoes for her. And we do a lot of donations for people like that. She's a very nice lady, nice family. That's why I keep working every day, as long as I can. We love being on Main Street with all the action all the time and supporting Austin. I mean, I lived here all my life for 77 years, so born and raised here and never moved away. I always lived in some part of town in Austin, so I love the town, I love the people, I like dealing with people and doing whatever we can for them. we've been in business now 100 years. Hopefully it'll be around another 100 years.
Thomas and the Shakes is a band from Rochester. They're known for their authentic blend of rock, R&B, folk, and reggae sound. As they continue to expand their catalog of original music, the group works to cultivate their Midwest following and bring their music to a wider audience. We caught a performance from Thomas and the Shakes at Fox and Fern Floral in Rochester.
This next song we're going to play you can't find anywhere because it's a brand new song. We just wrote this song. This song's called Cabin Song. This song is about any sort of sanctuary or safe place that you go to get away. right. Throw it down, make sure they know who's right. Don't be loaded with insults like only lies. I ball it flying, but I'm way out of sight. 'Cause I'm dropping down your road. Open space in a place that nobody knows. There's healing in the river flow. Oh, the rush, how it touches my soul. Like a child I am days old. In the eyes of the skies and the willows grow. I'm dropping down your road. I'm dropping down your road. I'm dropping down your road. Home alone.
We've reached the end of this episode's tour off 90. Thanks for riding along. See you next time, somewhere off 90.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.